Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show on the Storehouse Media Group podcast with the host, SherrIe of Storehouse Media. Hi, SherrIe. I know you have a great guest today.
Hi, Neil. And I do have a great guest today. I'm really excited about him coming on. I met him at CrimeCon in Vegas and it last May. And I was super impressed with him. And then he sends me his information, and I'm like, wow, I didn't think I could be more impressed with what I already knew about Carlos Rodriguez. And his friends call him Los, and I would like to call you Los. So, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah. Well, I went through the information and a little, research. And so I want people to know, like, really, you are really about the kids. You're a former crimes against children detective sergeant and FBI task force officer. And you also retired from the Washington State Patrol, WSP. And you were internal investigator, now an internal investigator for the San Diego Unified School District. Because what you do is you train with about trafficking, human trafficking, which is so huge. And you're also the author of The Ugly Underneath, which we're going to talk about soon as well. But Carlos, you've been in this world for a while. And you retired with the Washington State Police. What was it that got you involved with the CAC, the crimes against children and the trafficking?
Yeah, so actually, I had left a position and with the governor's office and went back to work the road. And working the road as a state trooper means when you see the troopers on the side of the road, that's working the road where you're out doing collisions, DUI enforcement, helping the motoring public. So I was doing that. I had a number of troopers there with me, and I was trying to get to work with someone who I'd worked with before, who was a supervisor of mine and had a lot of respect for him. And I really wanted to work with him again because I learned a lot from him. And he was in the fusion center for the state patrol, where they deal with a lot of intel, a lot of different federal and city county partners there. And they would do you could file suspicious activity reports, and then they would look at that and could provide support to other agencies throughout the state. So I was looking at getting into there, and that position ended up getting filled from someone who was already within the division. So he asked me, "Have you heard of the Missing and Exploited Children's Task Force?" And I had heard of them, but I didn't really know what they did. I thought they were actually our missing and unidentified persons unit, where they would put pictures of missing kids on the side of semi trucks and they drive up and down the state. That's what I thought they did. And it wasn't that at all. It was more of a proactive where they would work cases. So cyber tips, where people provide information about things that may people preying on kids, horrible things happening to kids, and they'd work those cases with the Internet Crimes Against Children uh, for the state because the state patrol wasn't the ICAC. They didn't run the ICAC at Seattle PD, and state patrol was an affiliate, that task force. So he told me about that. I went and cross trained there, and once I got there and saw what they did, I went to a search warrant where someone was trading images of bad things happening to kids, and they made an arrest there. And I thought, how can I not be doing this? And so I applied for it. I had to wait a year because there was a freeze, and then later I found out they were actually looking at getting rid of the task force. There was a
Oh,
hold
my.
because of budget cuts. And of course, it didn't happen. I don't know what state legislature would say, I'm going to cancel a task force that helps kids. So that didn't happen, but we had very extremely limited resources. I mean, before I got there, there was no more dedicated admin support. We didn't have a prosecutor that was designated to prosecute cases. I had three detectives, but one was retiring, one was with another agency, and then I had a trooper who ended up promoted. So I mean, it was slim pickings. I mean, I'd worked narcotics before in a task force where I had 7 to 8 bodies, dedicated admin support, prosecutor assigned to work my cases. People knew what we did, and that was not the case with this task force. But that's how I got into it, and then from there, we just made friends and made a lot of changes to do a lot of good.
It's amazing what's going on, isn't it? Like, and not being said on the news, not being told. And parents are aware of this, but sometimes the public doesn't get aware of how much it is.
Yeah, I'd say like the cases I would work when you have someone looking to someone looking to have sex with a kid. Um, it's as easy for them to make that happen as ordering a pizza or using an app to, Instacart, Uber. I mean, it's that easy. We do proactive demand ops where people were demand ops. If you're unaware of, your audience isn't aware, it's where people are. It's the purchaser, the one who wants to purchase sex, or the one who's there to offend on the child. So we would do the ops where we'd go after those individuals, and we would average 7 arrests a night. When we do these ops, we do them 4 or 5 days at a time. We'd average about 7 arrests a night for people showing up to do that to kids ages 13 and younger. And we could do more, but you have to look at, when you're running those types of ops, the logistics of it. You got to take care of your people. You have to worry about fatigue. You have to worry about, because if your people get tired, they can make mistakes. Your use of force can go up. Maybe you don't write the report correctly. You forget to do something, and then what's at risk? The risk is someone is not being held accountable for wanting to do a horrible thing to a child. Or when we do the interviews and you do the work after the fact, when they come in and you discover they're hands on with somebody, then they're not held accountable for that. So we would, ended up averaging about 7 a night. And then if someone still wanted to come and do something not on our schedule, we would just designate a smaller team to do that. Because when I ran those ops, we would, yeah, I had a small group, but we made friends over the years, and we'd have 60, 70 people at a time during these ops when we would do them.
You know, it's amazing. You talk about compartments, and I know this well. And those are places where you have to store, and I think especially with law enforcement and with what you did, you have to store them away. You have to put what you see, what you experience in these little compartments, and you got to close the door, and then you go home, right? So you had those compartments. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How did you realize those were part of your survival?
Well, I will say so. Doing this type of work, and I think people do it in other professions as well, but especially when you're working things that are maybe traumatic, you have to have the ability to compartmentalize things in order to focus on the mission and to focus on what needs to be done. And I will say it's not totally negative. It's actually a skill to be able to do that. But the problem is when you put so many things away and you don't open them up, then it'd be like Pandora's box. I mean, just things will overflow, and then it isn't healthy, and because then you're not taking care of yourself. And if you're not careful, that's what happened. And unfortunately, there were times where I experienced that. I would just put things away and move on to the next thing, and you keep going because there's just so much work to do, and you look at what the cost is. So, um, so I think I didn't really even really realize I was doing that as much until later on, when I wasn't doing the work after I had retired and was doing something else, and then I didn't have the need to compartmentalize things as much. And then little things would trigger me. I'd see something that would remind me from a case, and I'd get emotional, or I'd just feel a different way. And then I started to realize, wow, this job did affect me, did have a negative impact on my life. I started to see those things, and there's so many different things you could talk about and that way. But I do think it's a skill set. I think those who do this work, they have to do that so that they can focus on the job. It's just making sure that, I mean, if you're doing this work and you have a teammate, check on your teammates that are doing the work to make sure that they are talking about certain things so that it isn't just going to bubble up one day. And then if you're a supervisor, making sure you're taking care of your people, but especially taking care of yourself if you're doing the work, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your people. It starts with you.
Yeah. It's like, being on an airplane, they say make sure you take that oxygen breath before you hand it to a child, because you're no good if
Right.
you're passed out, to that child. So what would you, for like law enforcement or maybe other professions that go through and have those mental boxes, they don't get to that point where they just start, it's stuff too full.
I would think is, one, just realize it as you're doing this type of work. you're not alone in doing it. Your experience may not be exactly the same as everyone else's, but you're not alone. I guarantee you there are people that you meet day in and day out are going through something similar, especially if they're doing the same work. It just may be slightly different. So just know that the feelings that you feel, it doesn't mean that you're broken or damaged. It means that you care. You know, it means that you feel that way because you care, and then you're working in an area that these are horrible things that no one should have to see and no one should have to go through, let alone, the people that you're working to protect, that they should definitely not have to go through it. I mean, and that's how I used to keep going, as I would say, well, I'm not going through that. I'm seeing this. These things are horrible, but I didn't have to go through that. So if I can stop someone from else going through that, this is worth it. And then you just keep going. So I think it's really no, you're not alone. There are other people out there. It's okay to talk about this stuff. It's okay to talk to those, your family, those that love you. You don't have to go into all the dirty details, but let them know like when you go home, hey, I had a hard day. I need to process some things. So I'm just going to need some time to decompress, and then also build those things into your day. So me, I was the supervisor. Yes, I did work the cases because we were a small group, but I needed to take care of my people. So one of the things that we did is we'd build in time. So if my detectives had to look at some material that was ugly to look at, I would build in, okay, you have 2 hours before your shift ends. I don't want you doing I don't want you looking at any of that. Do something else. There's other things you can do. Do a training you need to do for the department. If you need to go for a walk, go for a walk. But 2 hours, nothing. So you have that time before you're back home with your family or your world where you can be present. And so what we did at the time, our office was about an hour away. My detective and I lived in the same city, and our office was an hour away. So about an hour, nothing for an hour, and then you have that drive home. And then for me, I would park behind it was a Sizzlers restaurant. I'd get a Starbucks, go behind the Sizzlers, do whatever I needed to do, and then drive home. And then I was able to be present for my family when they want to interact with you because they're excited to see you. They love you. They want to tell you about their day. They want to know about your day. So that way I could actually do that. So I think that would be something if you're in this line of work, build in mechanisms like that to help protect you.
And that how do you said it's so easy. How difficult is it to find them?
Well, it so every most people think this is all happening on the dark net, in some dark corner. It's not. It's everywhere. When I first started working the ops, which is only one part of my job, we did a bunch of other things where people were calling us for help. But the part in this instance, it was it's when Craigslist had casual encounters. So you'd post an ad on casual encounters, which is an area specifically designed for sex. And it was within 10 minutes, you'd have hundreds of responses. And then it was just working through. I mean, there were a lot of creepy, weird things in casual encounters, but they weren't all illegal. So our focus was working on those who wanted to do illegal things with kids, and that was our primary focus. So that was relatively easy. I mean, for us to average 7 a night for that, I mean, that's shouldn't be that easy, but it was. And then, depending on if a cyber tip came in, let's say someone's chatting on a platform, and then that organization sees that it isn't right, and then they report it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, goes to a cyber tip, and it would eventually get to us. We would look at that and you'd have the different evidence there. Sometimes it was like working an old dope case. You got the info you needed, then you'd go set up surveillance. You'd watch it. You'd work it the same way. With sex trafficking, that's where someone is exchanging something of value for a sex act with the kid because you don't need the coercion because kids can't grant consent. So in those cases, it was the same thing. Like you could work a dope case. You do the follow or you set up a date. They come in, they have the exchange if there's a kid there. So those I think were relatively easy. It's just managing it and making sure you have a trauma informed um, way of doing things because your commodity is a person. It isn't a substance that can only be used once. You're it's an actual person. And with sex trafficking cases, a lot of times the person that's being trafficked They may not even know they're being trafficked. And then usually they don't like the police for multiple reasons. It could have been experience they had in their life. It could be from maybe the police being negative with them. It could be how they're being groomed and taught. The police aren't there to help you. They're there to build a case. I had a friend who's a survivor. That's what she used to say. They're not there to help. They're there to build a case. So, and it's breaking through that. So a lot of those cases that I had, it took 5 or 6 times before the person would actually trust me. So
Mhm.
extremely easy, unfortunately.
Let's talk about your book, The Ugly Underneath. Tell us what that's about.
So the ugly underneath is a book that I wrote, and it's navigating the emotional toll of investigating crimes against children. And I wrote the book. Really, it started not trying to write a book. It started as when I moved to San Diego. I started to go to therapy to work some things out in my own mind because I didn't have the same support structure. And I started to write things out. And then my therapist, during one of our sessions, she said, "Hey, have you ever thought of sharing any of this with anyone? Because they may learn from some of the things that you've done. You've done a lot, you've experienced a lot. Maybe you can help some people not go through some of the same things that you did." So then I thought about it and I thought, okay, well then I'll write a book. So I started to write the book, and this was what it turned into. So it's about my journey. It goes through some things that happened in my life before I even was a police officer, and how that, without me knowing it, actually helped prepare me to help me learn how to compartmentalize things, because I had some traumatic things in my life dealing with death and divorce, and so different things like that, and then becoming a state trooper. So it goes through that, and then it goes into some of the cases, my experiences managing those cases, how they affected me, and what the cases actually are. So if you're in law enforcement, it's great because, and you did the work or you're interested in doing the work, it tells you what it's really like. If you're a family member, it maybe gives you some insight into, hey, well, okay, that's what that person was going through. It wasn't just me when they didn't want when they were off doing something. It wasn't because they didn't want to be around me, or it wasn't something that I did. It was because they were trying to process things. So it goes into some of that. And then if you're not in law enforcement and you want to have an idea of what this is really like, and how important this work is, it goes into that because of, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people do not realize this is going on because it's so horrible that why would you expect it to be real? You reason it doesn't it isn't reasonable for people to want to do these things to kids. I mean, it just shouldn't be a thing. But unfortunately, it is, and there is a necessity to have task forces like the ones I was in to do these things, and it's necessary to have victims advocates and people to help these kids once something has happened, and resources to help these kids. Um, so that's really what the book's about, and to hopefully get some support for those still doing the work, because there needs to be more resources dedicated to this for sure. There's not enough.
And I think it's a problem that is growing, and it's just not going to go away if we can't continue turning the blind eye to it. Like, it
Yeah.
is happening. It happens here in the United States of America. It happens in your city. It happens in your town. It may
Yes.
happen in your neighborhood. And that's what one thing you do, right? You go around training people on what to look for in the signs.
Yeah, so right now at San Diego Unified School District, we're the second largest school district in all of California, only second to LA. And we have a lot of schools, a lot of students. So when I first got there, um, I have experience working the cases. My boss used to be a prosecutor that worked trafficking cases. And so we thought, well, there's an awareness program, but what do we really have a prevention program? And you only know what you know. So we had great experience in that. So we thought, well, let's build a multidisciplinary team where we can help prevent some of these things. So we started with built making relationships with our partners to build the team. So we met with a number of community organizations that can provide services. We partnered with the Human Trafficking Task Force that that does that in the area. So the people who are sworn ability and the capacity to do the work. And then we have our own police department because we're such a large district. So we have a liaison there now who communicates with the Human Trafficking Task Force. And so once we had our team built, then we built a website so that people had one place where they knew to go. And we filled out a form. So it's almost like a suspicious activity report. Someone can report what they think may be trafficking. A lot of times I'd say 90% of it isn't, but it's a need that needs to be met for a student. It could be they need food, they need a place to stay, their parents need a job, different things like that. All things that if those needs aren't met, they can become vulnerable and then potentially could be trafficked. So we're trying
Mhm.
to prevent that. And I'd say the majority of the ones that come in, it's more something like that. And then it's not costing the school district anything because it's coming from these different organizations that are seeking out their own funding. And then we're just doing good things together. And then if we do get a case that comes in and it reaches the mark where it needs to be investigated criminally, then we have a direct line to those who know how to do the work because that's what they do day in and day out. And they're just doing it all of the time. So that's what we really wanted to do. And right now I've been working on it this week because there's a section where not everything is human trafficking. You still have child exploitation where kids are being exploited, but it doesn't mean there's an exchange for something of value. So we want to make sure that we're not missing that. So that could be your sextortion cases, your child sexual abuse or material, so your CSAM. So those different things. So we don't want to miss that. So we're going through that our form that we have and revamping that. We also have a detective who's assigned to the ICAC here in San Diego. So making sure that we're on the same page. So we're doing everything the right way, and really excited about offering that and getting that out. And hopefully, once it's done, we do it so well that other people are going to want to replicate it. And because we don't, everybody should be doing something like this. So super excited about it.
So if there is somebody who wants you guys to come in and train their school system or whatever, um, you offer that?
Yeah, so we've actually already had a couple meetings with some other school districts. We all got on a Teams call and we just talked about the different things that we're doing. We explained what our program is because the software that we use, it's called it's a lot of larger schools usually have this for their database system just for the school itself to where it can track students, it can track it can attracts employees. It has all the data in there. It ties into a system called Power School that a lot of schools use. So we use that format to create a workflow. So we do that for our Title IX investigations, our employee investigations. We do it for our and now our human trafficking concerns. We also do it for people who want to provide training to the school because we want to make sure we have the best people doing it that are actually doing best practices. So now they have to apply and then we vet them to make sure that they are using best practices so that we're doing the right thing for our community. So we just built a workflow in that system, the Guardian system. So if these schools have the same thing, basically we can just say, here's how you do it. Here are the keys. The important part about it though is they need to make sure that they have the people that know actually what human trafficking is and what to do, and then have the correct relationships with people who have the capacity and the know-how to actually address it. Because if you just have the system and you have people who don't really know what they're doing, then you're going to get these reports, and then what'll end up happening is if nothing happens or it isn't handled appropriately, then you're going to get people are going to quit telling you what their concerns are because nothing's happening. So, but yes, we've already started doing that. It's just we're getting ready for once the school year starts. We think we're going to get slammed because we just did a lot of training. We have another one coming up in July. So we trained school bus drivers. We've trained a couple sites. We trained our central office. And then now we're getting requests to train staff at different sites. So we think we're going to get slammed because it's myself, my boss, our PD liaison, and then an awesome lady named Rakina who's helping us. And we're it. And we have our jobs, and then we have that in addition to it. So I think we're going to be pretty busy. So we are applying for a few grants. So hopefully those go well, and then we can maybe get someone just assigned to doing that to help, and that's all they do, which would be great.
Mhm. SherrIe, it's awful to hear about this, but it's great that we're bringing light to it.
That's right. That's right. And you have people out in the field like Carlos Los, who's working on it. And he's doing everything he can. And it's just amazing. So thank you for what you do and what you've done.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. And there are so many great people that are out there doing this work, and they don't, the job is thankless job. I mean, I think law enforcement as a whole is a thankless job, but there are so many great people doing the work, and so if you're out there doing it, keep it up. You're not alone. There are a bunch of people out there. You're appreciated, and but take care of yourself. Take breaks.
Amen to all of that. Yes. Oh, well, you have been a wealth of information. Thank you so much. What's next for you?
So I just finished recording the audiobook for my book, and it's with the sound engineer. So that'll be the next for dealing with the book. I'm going to a number of conferences. I'll be at the Dallas Crimes Against Children. So that'll be great to get to see some old friends there, make some new ones, and then talk about the book. I'm new to the pitching the book thing because in law enforcement that just isn't what you do. I mean, the whole social media thing, I'm really learning. I'm getting better at it, but that just wasn't my forte. What isn't what I did because you were undercover and working cases, so you didn't really do that. And then I think I with just finishing the recording for that, I have I have time. I can go to sleep at a decent hour and go enjoy the sun, go watch a movie. I haven't been able to do that for several months, so that's been good. But really, it's just going out, making friends, sharing the book, focusing on the projects we have at the school district, and seeing my kids. I'm going to see my kids next weekend, so that'll be good up in Seattle.
Okay,
So
great. And are you still doing undercover or not?
no, so I'm not. I'm retired in 2020, so I don't do that
Uh,
any longer. And I had I've had the carrot dangled a couple times to go back into the work. I almost moved to Hawaii to go work ICAC there. Went through the background and stuff, but I was going through a divorce, and after that, and then the cost of living in Hawaii was three times of where I was, so that didn't work out. So moved down to San Diego in the school district, but I'm still in the space. I still train on a number of different things, dealing with
mm,
interviewing usually, and then now breaking into more of the wellness about here are my experiences, here's how I handled it, and then pairing up with someone else who's a good friend, Melissa Kaiser, and she's going to talk about, well, here's what Carlos did. Here's some other things you can do. She's more on the social side and making sure that we're taken care of. So I'm really excited about that. That we were on a call before this to go over a couple things. So we'll be presenting at that at the International Association of Human Trafficking Investigators in St. Pete, Florida. Which is a great organization. They provide training uh, so you can work human trafficking cases, and anyone who works in the space goes to that conference. It's a great conference.
okay,
So,
great.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
so you can there's my website, which is theuglyunderneath.com, which is a good way to find me, or on Instagram or TikTok. It's C_Rodriguez, RODRIGUEZ 198 is my handle, so they could find me on there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome.
great. And go all things marketing, media, and podcasting and publishing at storehousemediagroup.com. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
That was a special simulcast Neil Haley Show on the Storehouse Media Group podcast, guys. Take care.